Hello, everyone. I'm Eileen Croft on the event staff at Politics and Prose, and I'd like to welcome you to PNP Live. Thank you for joining us in this virtual event in the midst of these continuously extraordinary times, throughout all of which we strive to continue to bring you the authors you love and their new books to our Politics and Prose community. At any point during the event, you can click on the link in the chat to purchase today's books, The Henna Artist and The Secret Keeper of Jaipur, in the Politics and Prose website. Additionally, you can ask the author a question by clicking on Q&A, which can be found near the bottom of your screen. And while we'll try to get everyone's questions, we apologize in advance if we don't have time to address yours. We're providing closed captions to help you follow the discussion if you'd like. Just enable the CC link right next to the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Finally, we want to thank you for being here with us today. We're so thankful to our family of loyal customers who've kept our business and our spirits afloat. It's now my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Alka Joshi. Alka Joshi was born in India and raised in the US since the age of 9. She has a BA from Stanford University and an MFA from California College of Arts. Joshi's debut novel, The Henna Artist, became a New York Times bestseller and a Reese Witherspoon Book Club pick. It was translated into 26 languages and it's being developed into a Netflix limited series. The sequel, The Secret Keeper of Jaipur, also a bestseller, is being translated into multiple languages and will be followed by a third book in the trilogy in 2023. Prior to becoming a full-time author, Joshi ran her own advertising and marketing agency in Northern California. Joshi will be in conversation with Quinn, the New York Times and USA Today best-selling author of historical fiction. A native of Southern California, she attended Boston University, where she earned a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in classical voice. She's written 4 novels in the Empress of Rome saga and 2 books in the Italian Renaissance before turning to the 20th century with the Alice Network, The Huntress, The Rose Code, and The Diamond Eye, which was just published at the end of last month. All have been translated into multiple languages. Alka and Kate, welcome to PNP Live.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Eileen. It's a pleasure to be here. And thanks, Kate, for being our moderator today.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure. This is going to be fun. As we were just talking about before going live, it's like authors don't leave their caves pretty much ever. So, when the lovely Politics and Prose folks were asking us, thank you for giving up your Friday night to be doing this. And we're like, please, we had no plans. We had none.
This is the only time we get dressed up, you guys.
And believe me, it is party on the top and it is yoga pants with dog hair on the bottom.
You got it.
Although I don't believe that of you, because every time I have seen you, Alka, you have always been so fabulously put together with the jewelry and the great glasses. I don't know if you watch The Expanse, but you're really channeling Avasarala with like the fabulous jewelry and outfits in general.
Oh my God, I have to add that to my list now because I don't know anything about The Expanse. Ooh, okay.
Well, anyway, for everybody, I will be, grilling Alka on her new book, which I loved. So I'm so glad to be here. And if you want to save your questions, or honestly, you can go ahead and put them in the Q&A below, just as you were told earlier. And I will see those a little bit later on because we'll take Q&A at the end. But in any case, let's go ahead and at least chat a little bit about Secret Keeper of Jaipur. So just for the people who have not read it yet, can you give us a little bit of a précis of what it is about? And just for everybody who hasn't read, we will keep this talk spoiler free, so no worries.
So The Secret Keeper of Jaipur is about Malik and his relationship with Lakshmi that keeps changing, and also a new love interest that he has, a tribal woman in the Himalayas. So what happened is he was 8 years old and a street child in The Henna Artist, but he had the opportunity to go to a boarding school, very posh, in the Himalayan mountains. And so now he looks different. He's 20 years old now. He's grown up. He wears fabulous clothes. He also wears closed-toed shoes, which he never used to wear. And he has a better way of speaking than he used to as a street child. So what I wanted to explore was, how has he changed from the inside, if he has changed from the outside, and he is perceived so differently by people now. Now, Lakshmi has been his guardian for the last 12 years, and she has been in this de facto parent role. So how is she taking the fact that he is now old enough to determine his own career, to determine his own love interests. And I think she's having a little bit of a problem with that. So I wanted to explore, just as my parents had this, kind of struggle, I think, with all three of us as we grew older. At what point do we think that as parents, we have taught our kids enough so that we can let them make their own decisions in life? Malik, she feels, is not quite ready yet to have a love interest. So she actually sends him to Jaipur from the Himalayan mountains where they're living now. And in Jaipur, he encounters the Singh family again. He is working with the palace facilities office where they are building all these new buildings for the Maharanis. This is all in service of the redevelopment of India post-independence. And so, Malik is learning how to have a really legitimate career versus the kinds of things he is used to doing, kind of hustling. So, it's an exploration of adulthood, and it's an exploration of his relationship with Lakshmi and how it's changing. And of course, his relationship with this fascinating tribal woman, Nimmi, whom he has become so close to.
And I really loved seeing that because, when you see Malik in The Henna Artist, he's just this incredibly charming child who seems so much older than his years in so many ways. And, because he is a hustler, but he hustles with such charm that you can never, he could literally probably take the food right off your plate and you wouldn't mind. He's so charming about it. And, so it was great fun to see him as an adult. Now, given that this is sort of your sophomore published novel, and, quite often there's that thing about, the sophomore novel is a little bit hard to do. Were you already planning that it was going to be a continuation of characters from this same world in The Henna Artist, or was that a surprise to you?
No, Kate, this came as a total surprise to me. After I finished The Henna Artist and it went off to the printers, I had about a 6-month lag before it became a fully realized book, because it goes off to proofing and then the printers, you know this drill. And so I thought, okay, there's another story that I wanted to write, and it was about this half Hungarian, half Indian impressionist painter from the 1920s and 30s.
Oh God,
and
I want this book now.
Yeah. And I still may pick up that book at some point. But, it took me 10 years to write The Henna Artist. And during that time, these characters really came alive in my imagination, as I'm sure your characters do in your imagination. They become these people who start doing and saying things that completely surprise you. And at this point, I'm living with them, I'm sleeping with them, I'm eating with them, I'm doing everything with them. And Malik would not leave me alone. As I was starting to write this very different book, he said, you've got a lot of things about me that never made it into The Henna Artist. You've got 150 pages of Radha's life and my life that got cut out of The Henna Artist so that Lakshmi could be front and center. Why don't you write about us? And so finally, his voice was so insistent, I had to give up the other project and I started working on Malik. Well, I finished The Henna Artist. The Secret Keeper of Jaipur. It came very quickly. It was just like rat tat tat, da, da, da. I couldn't stop writing. And after I'd written about 20 pages, my agent said, let's send this off to the publisher. We sent it off and the publisher sent us a second book contract before the Henna Artist was even fully realized as a book. And so I'm working on this, but as I'm working on it, I realized that I already know in 1969, when The Secret Keeper of Jaipur takes place, Radha has no place in this book. She's supposed to be in Paris right now, working as a perfumer. And I couldn't shoehorn her into this story. So then I thought, okay, I'm going to have to write, after I finish this, another story that is just about Radha so that people will stop asking me, what happened to Radha? Why isn't she in this book? And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. After The Secret Keeper of Jaipur came out and people started reading it, they said, what happened to Radha? Why isn't she in this book? So now I am completing book number 3, and this will become a trilogy. I'm probably, just a couple of weeks now from finishing that book, and that will be published in March of 2023. And then my trilogy will be complete. So each main character has a book of their own.
So what really was it like that to sort of rotate the focus of the story? Because really Lakshmi was the center of The Henna Artist, and she does appear here, but really Malik's point of view is really almost more central, because it's about him, and it's about, his relationships with these two women whose other points of view that we see, one of whom has been this mother figure and mentor figure to him, and one who is, the charming mountain beloved, who is, already quite wary, quite battered by life. So how was it to sort of, rotate the focus of the story so you could bring something new and new points of view and new people to it?
Well, it was fascinating. And as you know, when we write historical fiction, we do so much research. And so the first scene that I saw before I started writing The Secret Keeper of Jaipur, and this is how I write, I see scenes. I see scenes fully realized in my imagination. I see people moving around. I see them talking to each other. I see the clothes they're wearing. I see whether we're in the mountains or whether we're in the living room. And so, for me, it's just a matter of writing all of that down on my laptop. And so this first scene I saw was Malik coming down with Lakshmi through this sort of pedestrian mall. It's called the Ridge in Shimla. And it's where a lot of people mill around. They go to the stalls where people are selling pashmina shawls and Coca-Cola and whatnot. And then also they stop in between and see all of the different sites for tourism. There's the Christ Church. There is the Viceregal hotel. There is the Mahatma Gandhi statue. There's all kinds of beautiful things in Shimla to see. And so he is coming down with Lakshmi. He's practically pulling her down this way toward a certain stall. This is what I see. And the stall is being run by this young woman. She is dressed in tribal gear. And the reason I know she's dressed in tribal gear is because my family used to vacation in Shimla during the hot Jaipur summers and Rajasthani summers. And so I remember the tribal people, they wore different kinds of clothes. They wore silver jewelry as opposed to gold jewelry. There were so many differences. You could tell who they were. And so I thought, what is this tribal woman doing behind a stall when really she should be back with her nomadic tribe going up the mountain again? Because it is springtime and the nomads are all traveling with their herds back up to the mountains in the higher elevations where they have their huts. They're going to come back down again when it's wintertime up there and they need a little bit warmer temperature to live in. So, as I started thinking about this question, I have to do research on the tribes. I don't know very much about them. I start researching nomadic tribes. That gives me license to this whole other exploration about Nimmi, this beloved of Malik's, and what she is doing here and how she knows about herbal remedies that are very different from what Lakshmi knows. And she is selling at this stall all kinds of flowers and plants that Lakshmi finds fascinating that she can use to help with the herbal remedies that she prepares for the indigenous people of that area. So, it was fascinating to me to go into this whole other realm. And then Malik's voice was so insistent that I gave him a first person narrative in The Secret Keeper. Nimmi's voice became so insistent, I had to give her a first person narrative. And then, of course, Lakshmi has my heart. She is based on both my mother and myself. And so I can't ignore Lakshmi. So she has a first person narrative in The Secret Keeper of Jaipur. So I ended up with these three alternating viewpoints about what is going on in this story, telling us from their perspective what they're perceiving. It was also, Kate, I think kind of an exploration for me as a writer. In the henna artist, I could not do what I had done in The Secret Keeper. I wanted to have alternating points of view, but I wasn't a seasoned enough writer to manage that just yet. And so my agent had discouraged me from doing that. And I had reworked the entire story from Lakshmi's point of view. But by the time I got to The Secret Keeper, I was able to do that. I wanted to challenge myself and go, okay, can I do this? Can I portray many different points of view? I can. And I love to read stories where I can. I think Julia Glass is probably one of the best, the three Junes. I think she's one of the foremost people who can do this so well. So
adding to your toolbox as a writer.
Yes, exactly.
You add your skills and you read other books and you're like, how do you do that? And you're picking it apart, just trying to think, how did you do that? That's always fun, I think, just to, when you're adding to your own tools, because you're right. It's like you start out and you're like, I couldn't juggle points of view like that, but now I can, so that's a great thing. Anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
And then the other thing that we learn also as writers is to juggle the past past and the present. How much of the past do we reveal? How much of the backstory do we reveal? Then when do we reveal it? At what point can we just sort of slide it in there as a brushstroke? And at what point do we need 3 paragraphs of a backstory? So I think that, these are all things that we keep learning as writers. It keeps becoming almost second nature as we do more and more and more of it. I think that's one of the most fascinating things about writing. We just keep learning new skills as we go along.
Yeah, and it really, what it does for you in Secret Keeper is that, when we're in The Henna Artist, you're very much in Lakshmi's world, which is all inside the Pink City. But here, since you had those 3 points of view, the world opens. You have when Malik goes back to the Pink City, you see that world that it's like, yes, I remember this, and you see the way he slides through, that society still with that, as this accomplished young man, but he also remembers doing it as, the hungry kid. But then also at the same time, you're back in the mountains with, back in the Himalayas with Lakshmi, and then you also see Nimi and the way she, kind of goes back and forth between these various worlds. And the thing I really loved about it, and I really appreciated about it, is that there is such a tendency for, people to view India as this monolith, and it is very far from a monolith. India is enormous, and there are so many different parts, so many different climates, so many different cultural strains. I did not know much about the nomadic tribes either before I read Nimi. It's Nimi and her story. But here we really got a bird's eye view with your different points of view into all kinds of different segments of Indian population and the various people who live there. And I really, really appreciated that, because, really anything that we could do to open up people's eyes to, it's like, let's look at India as more than just this monolithic single entity, which it is not.
That is perfect. I'm so glad you phrased it that way, because that's one of the things I'm trying to do with all of my books. Growing up as an immigrant in the United States at the age of 9, I was asked all kinds of questions about my birth country, India, that really threw me. They were things that led me to believe that India was this underdeveloped country with very little to offer the world, that India was poor, that it was illiterate, that, nothing was going on and nobody wanted to go visit it. And I thought that was so bizarre because, I came from an India that was in the throes of all of this building that's going on, and so much excitement among the people about, hey, we can build this industry. We can grow our people in this way. We can educate our kids, using these methods. And to come to the United States and realize that nobody here actually understood what was happening in India. As a child, I couldn't explain. I didn't have the words, the voice, the confidence to be able to tell people about that. And so for a long time, I remember just thinking, I am so ashamed of this country I'm from because nobody else seems to like it. And so I just kept really quiet about it. I didn't want to be from India. I didn't want to have anybody to talk to me about it. And because I have these kind of light eyes, sometimes they're blue, sometimes they're gray, sometimes they're green. A lot of people would mistake me for Brazilian. They would say, oh, are you Italian? Are you this? Are you that? And I would be like, whatever, whatever you want me to be. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I started writing and researching all about the history of India that I started, gaining this new appreciation for my birth culture. And I'm so proud now to be from India, because as I do the research, as I uncover more and more about India, I realize that there are so many diverse points of view in India. There are 70 major languages that are spoken, and each Indian knows how to speak at least 2 or 3 of them. There are so many, 200 different religions that are practiced in India. There are so many different kinds of people with their various cultures. And this is a nation of 1.4 billion people that is the world's largest democracy. Do you know how hard that is to manage a democracy with that many different religions and points of view and languages? I mean, here in the United States, at least we only speak the one main language, which is the English. And it's hard.
Anybody who's ever tried to manage a group project with more than 6 people, much less 200 different types, is going absolutely, green right now.
Right, exactly. So my hat is off to the government of India, which, by the way, is also very diverse. In the government of India, there are Muslims, there are Hindus, there are Punjabis and Sikhs and Parsis and Jews and Christians. I mean, there's also in the government, we have very diverse representation. So as I uncover a lot of these things, I want to write about them. I want to talk about them. I'm finding in all these book clubs, which I've spoken to, and I think I told you I've spoken to about 700 book clubs virtually since
Oh,
The
wow.
Artist came out 2 years ago. I know, I'm like, I'm constantly chattering. But as I have spoken to these book clubs, I'm realizing that a lot of South Asians that are in these book clubs also don't know very much about their birth country or their heritage. And so it allows me this fantastic opportunity to just inform people, to let them know about the beauty of India, to let them know that, it does have a lot to offer, that it always has had a lot to offer. This is an ancient culture where numbers come from. This is an ancient culture where language comes from. This is an ancient culture where a lot of science and math and engineering brain power comes from. So, now I am very proud to say I am Indian and I can tell you all about these various people. So yes, learning about the nomadic tribes in The Secret Keeper of Jaipur, which by the way, still exist in India and still traverse the Himalayan mountains north to south in many different parts of the Himalayas. It is an amazing thing to be able to do.
We had a great comment from Anila in the chat box just saying, I had similar questions in 1984. How come you speak good English? Or, oh, you went to college, but in India, women have no rights. And I was appalled because it was a country run by a woman, Indira Gandhi, even for life growing up. So clearly this is striking a chord here. Thank you, Anila, for bringing that up. We had another question in our chat box, which is just what happens with the relationship with Lakshmi and Jay Kumar? And can I just throw in there that like the minute we saw Jay Kumar, I was like, ooh, this one looks good. Not to sound like a matchmaker here, but I'm like, Lakshmi, look twice, please.
Right.
So it's nice to see that at the beginning of Secret Keeper that, you do see the two of them, which is nice.
Yes. And I delight in telling people that Jay Kumar is actually inspired by my husband, whose middle name is Jay. And so Jay Kumar is somebody who listens. And I think we all want that kind of partner in our lives. We want somebody who listens, somebody who respects us, somebody who thinks, if this is what you want to do, let me help you, let me encourage you in that direction. And that's exactly what Jay Kumar is all about. So yes, Jay is, we find out in The Secret Keeper of Jaipur, and I don't think this is really a spoiler because I think everybody knows this is where it was headed, but Jay and Lakshmi are now married, and they have been for the last 6 years in this novel. They work together at the community clinic up in the mountains where a lot of the indigenous people come. So Jay is the director of the Lady Reading Hospital. And so he does a lot of the Western surgeries and the Western tending. But Lakshmi is very much in the Eastern tradition of Ayurvedic medicine. So she deals with a lot of natural remedies, and a lot of the indigenous people don't want Western medication. They would like to, for their boils, for their indigestion, for, other things that are going on in their lives, they want, something that is much more natural and doesn't smell antiseptic. So that is the difference between what the two of them are doing. But this is where Nimmi comes in, right? Because Nimmi, as a tribal woman who harvests some of the plants and herbs that are much higher elevations, that are in the much higher elevations where she's from, she is introducing Lakshmi to a whole new set of remedies that they use as they travel. The nomadic tribes travel from north to south. The nomadic tribes have no hospitals, they have no clinics, they have to take care of their own thing. I tell you this, I was reading this wonderful National Geographic article. It was giving me all this background on some of the nomadic tribes. There was a reporter who was embedded with them, and he watched as they were coming down this one trek from the north, and there was a little calf who fell into a ravine. And, these treks are very treacherous. The mountain treks do not stay the same. There has been snow, there has been ice and sleet and all of that. And so some of these treks get really slippery. Well, this little calf fell down the ravine. He broke a leg. And so you would think, oh my gosh, an animal like that breaks a leg, that's the end of that animal's life. No, the tribe picked him up and they tended to his wound. They made a poultice out of all of their herbal remedies. And then they wrapped up his leg, and then they carried him upside down on this sort of makeshift sort of stretcher that they had. And it took 4 men, on their shoulders to carry this calf. And they carried him for the rest of the way down so that his leg would heal. And his leg healed. Isn't that amazing? I mean, I was just so taken with all of the ways in which peoples who don't have the kind of Western tools and facilities that you and I have, how they deal with life and how they get on with life just fine.
Actually, that reminds me of a wonderful thing I read somewhere. It was posed by a college professor, and they said, like, what do you think is the invention that is the greatest sign that a civilization has moved from maybe like to the point of like true civilization and advancement? And the students are throwing out all these things like ovens to cook food, or various things that are weapons, or the wheel. They're throwing out all these various inventions, and the professor listens to this and finally says, no, it is when you have medicine that is sufficient so that when a human breaks a leg, it is not a life ender, because that is a sign, isn't it? That and I know you were talking about a calf, but I immediately went here because when you break a leg in a setting where when you break a leg, that generally means you're done. Yeah. If you're going to survive a broken leg, like a broken femur as a human being in, a harsh world, it means that you have a community around you that has medicine that will heal you. Yeah. It means that in some way, it means that you have a community that's willing to tend to you and feed you while you heal. So there's a community structure in place, and there's caring, and it's not all about, we can't carry you, I'm sorry, now you're done. And I thought that was the most unique angle, because it stressed medicine as the advancement and caring in community as the two things that are the ultimate sign of this is a human civilization that has made it from past just a tribe which is together for survival. Yeah. But like when you have the sign that someone has had a badly broken leg, but that leg healed.
Yes. And absolutely. And these are the most fascinating things that I was finding out about these tribes. And this is why they still exist today, because they have found ways of keeping themselves whole even after their tribe or their livestock is hurt. And then one of the other things, as you noted, in The Secret Keeper of Jaipur that happened, is that I found out that these tribes, because they are the only ones that can really go up into the mountains, they have the lung capacity, the strength of the leg, and the ability to traverse these mountains. They get conscripted into all kinds of nefarious activities that really are not part of their agenda at all. But their lives are threatened if they don't agree with some of these the smugglers. The smugglers are smuggling guns, they're smuggling drugs, and then gold. And I found the gold the most fascinating, so I decided to follow that lead. Okay, so how is the gold being carried across these mountains? Well,
that's when you end up Googling things like, how to smuggle gold across international borders. And you're thinking like, oh God, I just landed on a list somewhere.
You know what? I think about that all the time. I think, the FBI must have all of this information on all of us. Like, we writers will be the first in line for a murder, because we have been Googling all these really bizarre things. How do you smuggle gold? How do you kill somebody with a pitchfork? How do you, there's all of these things that we are constantly, looking up. And yes, someday it will bite us in the butt.
I really had if you ever get a bunch of writers together and ask them like, what's the scariest thing you ever had to Google for research? That's a fun discussion. I mean, I have one friend who literally was trying to look up how to kill a small child and make it look like an accident. I had a long email chain with like a firearms expert asking him like, how do you rig a shotgun to blow up in someone's face and kill them? So, but not make it look like murder. And I'm just sitting there afterward like, oh boy, hello there, Homeland Security.
Right, exactly. Oh my gosh. And yes, and your books are all about, espionage and spying and all. Yes, so you are definitely on all those lists, Kate.
I am absolutely. Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt. You were telling, I was wanted to ask anyway about your research, because you've obviously done a huge amount, for both these books, but what have you done? What was your research like? What was the cool thing? What were the cool things that you found out as you're researching gold smuggling and henna tattoos? Like, how deep into it did you get? All of that, because people love hearing about the research.
Well, we've talked about this before, how we, historical fiction writers who do so much research, how we can go down these rabbit holes and we can just keep going. We have to stop ourselves. We have to literally pull ourselves away and go, okay, you know what? I think you've done enough research on that. You need to stop researching this or you're going to be here for another week. So, yeah, exactly. I have these notebooks that I fill with all of my research. I have all these little skinny notebooks that I fill with research for every book. And then I go through each of these books and then I just kind of highlight things. Well, the gold smuggling was really interesting to me because, me, I'm a jewelry whore. I love jewelry. And so I thought, okay, gold, I want to know more about that. How are they getting the gold down from the border, the northern border, down into the middle of India? And then why are they even smuggling gold in? I thought Indians love gold and they already had all that gold. Every jewelry shop you go to has 22, 24 karat gold displayed all over the place. And as I found out, India doesn't mine a lot of their gold. It has to come in from other places. Gold is important for dowries. And so it's very important to have gold all the time for all of these Indians, except what happens is that they pull out that gold from a jewelry shop and then they keep it, they give it to a bride and the bride keeps it for her progeny. So the next generation that comes along, she's going to give that gold up to them. Therefore, the gold never goes back into circulation as currency, and that devalues a rupee. And so the government, and this is all research, by the way, and so the government at one point started pulling together this Gold Control Act and then revising it every 10 years or so. And the idea behind it is that, you have to limit the amount of gold that every family can have and every jeweler can buy. Well, that doesn't satisfy everybody's demand. And so these jewelers are buying contraband gold. Where's the contraband gold coming from? It's coming down from the mountains. It's coming from the south. And so from the north, these tribes are carrying gold on their livestock. So then I'm looking for all over the place. How do you carry gold on livestock where it's not obvious, right? You can't just put saddlebags on an animal like a sheep and then not expect the border patrol to just go through the saddlebag and go, oh, here's all the gold that we were looking for. So then I thought, okay, what do I need to find out about sheep? What parts of a sheep can you actually extract? Can you actually separate from them? And I found out about all these sheep shearing. And I start looking at sheep shearing videos. That's another rabbit hole I go down and I go, oh, that is so fascinating. I think I might want to take up sheep shearing. And as I looked in that, I thought, oh, you know what? You could slip gold inside a partially sheared sheep and then sew all of the open area back up again. And boom, you are, in contraband land. And so, you could have like 50 sheep and they're each carrying like 5 nuggets of gold or 5 bars of gold or whatever. And
if you ever get into the sheep business and you suddenly are putting pictures on Instagram of like, look at my adorable new lambs, I'm going to be like, are they worth their weight in gold? Literally. Right.
And, people who are reading The Secret Keeper of Jaipur, when I tell them that, I just sort of imagined that is the way you could do that with sheep. They're like, oh my God, I bought it. Hook, line, and sinker. I bought it. That really is something that's happening. And I said, well, not that I know about, but, I have just given the sheep herders and the contraband people another way to carry the gold down from the mountains. But, Malik is going to find out why this gold is coming down into Jaipur, how it's getting down there, and how the Singhs are involved. And that is how Malik gets involved in that, even though the gold is coming down from the part of the country that Nimmi and Lakshmi and Dr. J are living in. Yeah.
So we have a question here from Anila that says, Jay seems like, a lovely guy. My question is about Samir. Would he show up in the third book by any chance?
I am kind of wrestling with that a little bit. I had him in one draft. I did have him in there, and now he's no longer in there. So, as Kate, we go through all of these drafts, and sometimes characters are just sort of left out on purpose, like we think, well, are they really serving the story? If they're not really serving the story, maybe we leave them out. But it's interesting to me that Samir has turned into one of those characters, even though he does betray the women that he is with. He betrays his people all the time, his friends, his family. He betrays them.
I had a soft spot for him anyway, though. I kind of did. I couldn't help it.
Yeah. That's just it. And the readers love him. Like, even though he is one of those kind of guys, it's hard to hate him. It was hard for me to hate him also. So, yeah. I would love to bring him back, but I just don't know if I can shoehorn him in. And if I did shoehorn him in, let me tell you, dear reader, you will know. You, dear reader, are the ones who are always very keen to discover when an author has deliberately placed something in there that didn't feel natural, like a sex scene, for instance. Like, haven't you watched a movie and you think, hey, that sex scene was gratuitous, that didn't even need to be in there, or that violent scene was gratuitous, it didn't need to be in there. Like, you can just tell.
Or sometimes, like, Tom Clancy is a little guilty of this. He suddenly goes on these long techno drones where he wants to tell you all the technical specs of what every weapon in the book. And I'm like, Tom, we did not need 4 pages about the capabilities of the Kalashnikov. I know you did that research. I know you had 29 tabs open, but we don't need it.
Yes. That's
you can tell.
Yeah. And that's one of the hardest things is you find out all this fascinating stuff and you think, I got to tell people about this. But in the end, you've got to cut. I do that all the time. I put too much in. And then as I go through the next draft, I go, you know what? I just need 1 sentence. And I'm so upset because in this whole book that I put all of these notes down, I may only take 1 sentence out of this that actually goes into the books.
Oh yeah. That's the point where I sometimes do things, I'll just put in brackets, insert, learned thing about abstract expressionist art here. And then I keep going because there's nothing more depressing than putting 5 hours down the rabbit hole to learn all about henna tattooing or gold smuggling or impressionist art. And then realizing that got cut from the whole chapter you wanted. Then it got cut to 1 paragraph. Then it was 1 line. And then the whole scene got cut. And then you're like, 5 hours of my life. God damn it.
Yeah. One day I thought I am going to put together all the hours that it takes to write a novel and see, how much am I making per hour?
Yeah, it's pennies, I swear. Now we have a couple of questions about Radha's book, both from Natasha and from Lonnie. What's your research in Paris for Radha's story? And then, is it taking place in the past or in the future?
Well, it is taking place in 1974. So from The Secret Keeper, we have advanced the story once again, another 5 years. And Radha is in Paris. She is married to a Parisian. She is a perfumer. She works in a lab. It actually takes about 5 to 10 years to become a master perfumer, more toward the 10-year end. It takes so long to memorize 3,000 scents by your brain.
So is she a nose? Like one of those people they call the noses?
Yes.
That's literally a title.
And it turns out that the French like to say le nez. So they use the French word, but they don't like the English word, the nose, the way that we say it. Isn't that interesting?
That is funny.
So I've tried. So I've tried not to refer to Radha's bosses as noses, but they are master perfumers. And it has taken them years and years to get to that place. Now, Radha is a lab assistant, and she would love to become an apprentice perfumer. That's the next level. And then you can become a master perfumer, but you need to be really educated along the way and learn a lot of things about chemistry. It turns out that as a master perfumer, you have to know a lot about chemistry. It's just like, food chemists. There are fragrance chemists. And so Radha is on the cusp of finally getting that first assignment and developing her very first signature scent. This is a really big deal for her. And her husband is having some issues with this because they have two small children. And Radha has decided that the career is something she wants to pursue. And this is very difficult in their marriage because Pierre had always wanted a more traditional sort of wife. And so there's some conflict that's happening there. Anyway, Radha has to take a business trip down to India because in my research, I find out this fascinating thing that takes me all the way back to India again. There are so many raw ingredients that are used in perfume that are based in the Indian subcontinent, that come from the Indian subcontinent. And this has been true for centuries. So those French perfumes that you are used to hearing about, they all have their base in things like sandalwood oil, which is sandalwood is mined. It's a tree and it's mined in the Indian subcontinent. Also vetiver, which is a grass that's mined there.
Yep.
There is cinnamon and clove and cardamom. These all go into perfume. There is a rose that's very intense, a damask rose, and then there's a jasmine. So there's lots of different perfume ingredients that are mined in India. And Radha will have to go down to India to find exactly the right ingredients that she's looking for her signature scent. By the time she comes back to Paris, there is a visitor sitting in her house. And the visitor happens to be the baby, Nikki, who is now all grown up at 18. And he wants to know, who is this Radha that his mother has been writing to all of these years? So this is a huge comeuppance for Radha. And it is sort of a great way, I think, to round out her story, all these years that she has regretted giving up her child. And here her child is in front of her saying, who are you? Why are you so important to my parents that I have all these unopened letters addressed to you in my mother's drawer? Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, because I think everybody wants to hear her story. And I think I'm looking forward to that, definitely. I'm guessing Pierre did not know about her past.
He did not know about her past.
I had a feeling.
Yes. Yeah. And so, you can imagine that at the same time that they're having some marital issues around career, this is going to be a huge, conflict point between them as well. But what's wonderful is when I take her down to India, here's another point of research that I found, and a fascinating thing I found about the courtesans of Agra. These are the women who taught Lakshmi how to paint henna. These are the women in the kotha. The kotha is that, I guess you would call it a house of pleasure. And so the kotha is where Lakshmi met up with these courtesans in exchange for the cotton root bark that she gave them, which was the way that they kept themselves child-free. They taught her the art of henna, and they gave her.
I remember that.
Yeah. And so Lakshmi meets Radha down in India at the kotha, these women that she hasn't seen in 20 years. And they are fragrance experts because they use fragrance in India so much to entice, to seduce. These are the women who know how to do that with their patrons. And so Lakshmi says to Radha, you know what? Rather than going all over India to explore these raw ingredients, why don't we go straight to the kotha? They can tell us which ingredient you might be missing in your formula. And sure enough, these women are just fascinating. So then in my research, I find out that these pleasure women who ran the kothas in India were the richest people in India at one time. They were the richest because they took money from Maharajas and noblemen and businessmen and and whoever came to the kotha, they had to have a lot of money because they're more like geishas than they are like prostitutes. They only have one man in their life at one time, but also they do classical dance and classical poetry, and they have all kinds of ways to educate the sons of these noblemen about etiquette. And so they are sort of a very high level pleasure woman. And these women were so wealthy at one point. They owned property, they owned businesses, they owned so many different things that they actually helped sponsor the Indian independence movement against the British. And so the British would heavily tax them to penalize them for helping with the independence movement. But there's a whole story there that I would love to unpack in another book.
Oh, that's great. Now, we do have another question as well about the Netflix adaptation, which, I'm dying to hear more about too. So do you know when people will be able to watch that? What can you tell us?
What I can tell you is I don't have a timeline on it, but I do know that the people who are involved in the making of it, first of all, Netflix, which I think are great partners because they really have, I don't know if you've noticed, they've really expanded their repertoire. They're doing a lot of shows from around the world, from different cultures in different languages. And I think they're doing a beautiful job sort of connecting us all as human beings. Our humanity shows through no matter what culture we are from. So it's Netflix, and then it's Michael Edelstein, who used to run NBC Universal Studios in London. He is very much thinking that the henna artist will be looking like Downton Abbey, and it could also be looking a little bit like Bridgerton. So, both of those shows have that sort of historical feeling about them, gorgeous sets, gorgeous jewelry and costumes, which I'm all into.
Beautiful colors. Oh, yes.
Yes. So all of that. Yeah. So all of that is coming through, and that's Michael's vision, and that's Frida's vision as well. So Frida Pinto will play Lakshmi. And, it's wonderful to have a major actress on board with a show, because the chances of that show then getting produced are much greater, I think, as you were telling me, Kate, than, if we didn't have a major actor attached to it. But to Frida's credit, not only did she want to play Lakshmi, but she wanted to executive produce this show. She really wanted to be involved in the decision making around the show, because she said, look, I am looking for South Asian properties to bring to the big and little screen. It's very important that these stories are told by South Asians. And here is Alka. She is telling this story about India post-independence that hasn't been told before. So we need for this story to come out. And I'm just so, delighted that she is involved in the process as well. So that's all I can tell you, is that the scripts are being written, they're being vetted, they're being, looked at by everybody. I get to look at the scripts, but I don't get to do anything else. I have sold my option. I have sold my soul.
Well, please tell me, at the very least, there will be visits to the set, and can you negotiate to do what Diana Gabaldon did in Outlander, where she got a scene where she got to be in costume and a big party scene and just have her little cameo appearance in the background, because we absolutely need to see you, dressed up in 89 pounds of fabulous jewelry and a whole lot of great henna designs, just being one of the background ladies at the palace at the very least.
Even if they don't offer it to me, I think I might just be walking in, behind the main characters. I might just be doing a little, hi, Mom.
Oh, yeah. I think you can at least negotiate for that, so that way you can have your bit on the set and get all dressed up in something fabulous, and, make sure that you get the fabulous henna designs and so
now, have you ever done that with any of the ones, the books that you have had the option that's been sold? Have you ever done that? Hey, I would like to be in one of those scenes. No?
It hasn't gotten so far yet. All I've had at this point is the last 3 of my books have been optioned, but that's all I know. They're putting together a team, but they don't have a streaming partner yet, like Netflix. There aren't any actors attached yet. So we're not quite at that stage. I think if it gets to the point when it's all right, filming is going to happen here, and then, the whole cast is on board and we know this is going to happen. That's the point at which, believe me, I will be putting my hand up and saying, I have a writer's schedule. I go nowhere. I can be anywhere in the world at any point, so please give me a chance to come onto the scene and, put me in pilot coveralls or put me in victory rolled hair for a background scene or something, put me somewhere I promise I won't say anything. I'm not an actress, but please put me in the background, hopefully wearing something fabulous, just so I can have something to put on my Instagram account.
I have, I have the most amazing readers. I have the most supportive readers. I mean, readers who write to me and say things like, yeah, you should be in this show. You should definitely, have a role. We think you should be the older Maharani. You should do this. You should do that. And I'm like, wow, you guys, you are giving me a lot of credit for being an actor that I have never been. I'm not, I'm not that kind of an actor. But, the thing about historical fiction that I absolutely love and that I think a lot of my readers are telling me about also, and you're talking about the costumes and the jewelry and the background and the backdrops, is that I think you and I have this very interesting perspective that we bring to the fore. And like a lot of other historical fiction writers, especially female writers, we are bringing to the fore stories of women who have done extraordinary things, who have bucked convention in order to live the lives that they really want to live, the way that Lakshmi lives her life in The Henna Artist, speaking for her own truth, her own ideas about what she wants to do in her life without somebody else getting in the way.
And Meade does the same thing as a young widow who's been through the mills, but she has this independence that she's clinging to, and she's got her little family that she's providing for.
Yes. So Nimmi in The Secret Keeper of Jaipur, yes, I was just about to say she's doing exactly the same thing. She is actually sort of a younger version of Lakshmi, where she decided to leave her own tribe. A very difficult thing for somebody to do who's always been raised among the same people. Very difficult for her to say, you know what, I've got two little kids. I don't want them to have the same fate as my husband did when he fell down that ravine. I want them to be raised also in a city where they can learn their letters. And this is something that the nomadic tribes historically have never been able to do. They are largely illiterate. They have never been in one place long enough to have their kids in school. And so Nimmi is illiterate, but her two children, she wants definitely for them to learn how to read and write. And that is something that Lakshmi can help them do. So I love bringing these stories about these women who, people are always asking me in book groups, so did these women really exist? Was this, are women like Lakshmi and Nimmi, are they really, based on reality? Did a girl like Radha at the age of 13, did she really have a child? Like, is this really, based on something? And I'm like, you guys, women have done extraordinary things and mounted extraordinary obstacles in ways that I think surprise us, but they shouldn't surprise us because these women have always existed. And this is where I think we get a lot of our strength today from these amazing women. Don't you think that is a remarkable thing that historical fiction brings to light?
It is. And, it's one of those things where I think you can find the extraordinary things that ladies have done in the past. And, this is it, whenever I'm asked about this is what you want to do, right? And this is what you're doing. And I say, yes, but I'm far from the only one. Many of my, colleagues who are also women writing historical fiction, they have the same goal that I do, which is they want to find these extraordinary ladies of the past and to bring the stories out because they were there and you can find them. It's just that you have to look around the edges a little bit and you have to dig a little bit because probably the spotlight wasn't on them at the time. And I think it becomes something that is great because you often it might be someone who in real life you would look past, like Lakshmi so often exists on the sidelines. She's just the woman who's quietly doing your henna in the background of all these rich women, but she's extraordinary when you look at her. And I remember someone saying to me, the thing I loved was my heroine in the latest book, The Diamond Eye, is, a woman who became a sharpshooter in World War II and the most effective one in history, female sharpshooter in history. Yeah. But the thing is that, and for all that's a superwoman kind of thing to do, she was extraordinary already.
Yeah.
But she was extraordinary already because it's like, you're talking about a woman who was like Radha, a teen mother, who was impregnated by a louse, who then became a single mother, who got her life back on track, who, got her degree, wants to be a historian, all these, is still managing to, create, a stable home life for her child. It's like, these are the kind of women we see all around all the time, quietly thinking like this, quiet super women who are carrying unimaginable loads and making it look, if not easy, they're doing it gracefully. Even if they're really underslept, they need more help, they need more rest time, but they're doing it. And I tend to look at ladies like this and I think, you could probably be, who knows what you could do? You could probably be one of the great sharpshooters of all time too, if you wanted to. You got a degree in night school while also being a single parent to a small child. There's nothing you can't do.
That's right. And also, you can be a Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She's from our lifetime. You can be, Justice Brown, who was just confirmed to the Supreme Court. You can be all those kinds of amazing people. You can be Madame Curie. Probably at this point, maybe not have your husband sort of steal some of your thunder,
and hopefully not, die of radiation poisoning. That would be better.
Right. I mean, there are amazing women, and for I can't remember the author, but the one who wrote Hidden Figures, she showed us 3 African-American women without whom the space program would not have been as successful. I think that we are unearthing, you and I and a lot of historical fiction authors out there, we are unearthing the contributions that women have made to the larger world and to our knowledge base that I think a lot of people weren't aware of. And it shouldn't come as a surprise to us that women have done that throughout history.
No, I do not think so either. And I think the nice thing is that we will never run out of women to write about, which is a wonderful thing. We do have one last sort of history-based question in our chat. Would you want to tackle that one maybe before we wrap things up?
Sure.
It is, since there are at least 4 Indian religions, Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, Sikhism, and other foreign monotheistic religions, why do the Indians of different Indian religions never fight with each other or with their own sects in those religions, but the monotheistics fought in the West, and even after spreading and plus, I'm missing a colonization. Is it because Indian religions preach nonviolence? I don't know about these questions. I will leave that to you.
Yes, Hinduism preaches nonviolence, and that is why in India you have so many people who have come in and made their home in India without any problem. So they have been accepted, they have been welcomed, and Hinduism is a religion that says we're not going to proselytize. We don't go around the world saying everybody should be Hindu, but if you want to come and be with us, please share our food, please share our home, please share our festivities. We're happy to welcome you. I think that is a major tenet of that religion that serves everybody well, and probably is the reason why you can have 1.4 billion people in that space and not have everybody killing each other. I think that one of the things I'm always trying to show with Malik, his character and the way he's interacting with all the Hindus, because Malik is Muslim and he's interacting with Lakshmi first in the henna artist. Now he's with Nimmi, who is also of a Hindu. She's from a Hindu tribe, and I just want that symbiosis to be known throughout the world, because in India it exists. The ability to get along with a lot of different kinds of people exists in India. And, think about it, Muslims and Hindus in India work together. They own businesses together. They make movies together. If there were a bloodbath on the streets with 300 million Muslims who live there today, the country would come to a standstill. And so I just want to, I think, portray more of that positive feeling between all of these different disparate religions in India rather than the conflict. I think sometimes, Kate, we authors do have a responsibility to we have responsibility because what we put out there in the world, even if it's fiction, will oftentimes be taken as reality. And sometimes it may influence the way somebody thinks about their life, about the people around them. And I take that responsibility really seriously, especially when I'm writing about a different culture. It's very important to me that people reading my books are understanding what I'm saying about the balance between all of these different ideas in this world.
I think, yeah, I take it very seriously too. And I think we have a unique a chance as fiction writers rather than as, nonfiction, which is where fiction is a way, by telling stories, that you can have a conversation with readers about important issues in a way that is non-confrontational. I mean, if you wanted to maybe get in someone's face at a cocktail party or online on Facebook and say, let's have a conversation about diversity of religion and diversity of politics and women's rights and voting rights and all these things, that person would probably start backing away from you, thinking, this sounds like it's going to be a conversation with a lot of shouting and capital letters if we're online, and I don't want to do it. And they're just going to back away. They don't want to have that discussion. But if you have your characters in a story, fictional people who are talking about these things or who are living these issues, then suddenly it's a way that you have, in essence, gently backed your reader into a corner where now they're having these thoughts. They're thinking about these issues, and maybe they're having different thoughts. Maybe they're thinking, I used to think one way about diversity of religion in India. And now because of this book, I'm thinking, maybe that idea wasn't right. Or maybe it is more like this than like this. And, you've made someone have these thoughts without coming right at them. You're coming at them in a sideways way. And that's why I take it seriously as well. And I think that we do have a very unique way to reach people through story, plant ideas.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. And it looks like one of our listeners today or watchers today has pointed out something really important also. And that is the ability of Hindus, to get along, with a lot of different kinds of people. And I think this is kind of what I was trying to say earlier. In the United States, I'll leave you with this thought. I think 6 of the CEOs of the major tech companies, you Google, Microsoft, all of these other companies, they're all Hindus. Just saying. Just saying. I think it's really, I think it's just remarkable. Listen, I am just proud of the India that I come from. I'm proud of these resilient people that I talk about in my novels, and I am just really proud to share them all with you, the readers. Thank you so much, Kate, for being our moderator. And thanks to Politics and Prose for having the two of us. This has really been fun.
It's been great.
Well, thank you so much, Alka and Kate, for being with us. And I also want to thank our wonderful audience. Your patronage is what enables us to bring you programming like this. And we cannot continue to host these types of events without the book sales to support them. Please support Alka, Joshi, and PNP by using the link in the chat to purchase The Henna Artist or The Secret Keeper of Jaipur, or both, many copies of each. Check our website for the most current updated event listings, as we have a great list to choose from. We do hope to see you all here again, and thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you so much to both of our speakers. Thank you again. Keep reading, everyone, and we'll see you next time.